Saturday's mass shooting in Buffalo comes amid a rise in racial violence across the country. According to data from the FBI, in 2020, there was a surge in hate crimes targeting African Americans. There were just over 8,000 reported hate crime incidents that year, and FBI data shows about 65% of them were based on race, ethnicity, or ancestry bias. Within those categories, Black Americans made up more than half of the victims. Hate crime statistics for 2021 haven't been released yet, but experts say the assault on Black Americans has continued. Joining us now, the host of MSNBC's Politics Nation and president of the National Action Network, Reverend Al Sharpton, CEO and national director of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt. He's the author of the book, It Could Happen Here, Why America is Tipping from Hate to the Unthinkable and How We Can Stop It. Also with us, founder, producer, creator, and host of the Culture Stories series, Alyssa London. She's an MSNBC producer. It's good to have you all with us. Reverend Al, I'd like to start with you with a sense of what you hope to hear from the president today, and also just the fact that this mass shooter could broadcast his crime live. I mean, it shows the level that this has gone to on every level, including social media.
I think that's one of the most compelling things that a lot of people are missing, is that this shooter was proud of what he was doing, committed to it, where he was actually live streaming him doing it. He wasn't somebody that was running away from what he did. He wanted to continue, if he wasn't arrested, to do it at other places, but he wanted everybody, this is what I'm doing, this is what we're about. And that is what is frightening to us. And I hope when the president goes today, and there's no one better with giving a real compassion and feeling to families than President Joe Biden. I was in the room when he met with George Floyd's family the day before we had the funeral services in Houston. He is very compassionate, and so is Dr. Joe Biden. And I think he meeting with first responders and community leaders is good, and then dealing with gun issue is good. But I also want him to come out and go from empathy to really dealing with this as a national hate crime level that is not just against blacks, but is against anyone that white supremacists feel are not like them, which includes Jews, Asians, Latino Americans, LGBTQ. The night this happened, when I was called by our people on the ground in National Action Network's chapter in Buffalo, I reached out to Jonathan Greenblatt. I reached out from the ADL. I reached out to the head of LULAC. Latinos. I reached out to Mark Morial and said we need to call on a White House conference on hate crimes. We may all not agree on every issue, but we all are being targeted, and the president must raise it to that level to say we've got to deal with hate. We have to deal with those in the social media companies that allow this to have platforms. We have to deal with every element to break down how we stop this, so that a young man at 18 years old could think, not only am I going to do it, plan it, drive 3 hours to do it, I'm going to live stream it, because this, I want the world to know I'm a part of that. We cannot let this go across any of the racial or ethnic lines in this country.
And Reverend, of course, it's hard to always monitor every dark corner of the internet, of social media, but we do know that there are Republican leaders in the House, the United States Congress. We do know that there's a powerful news network. We do know that there are powerful voices on the Trump right that are pushing the great replacement theory. Of course, they're scrambling now. So, oh, no, when we called it a great replacement theory, we weren't talking about a great replacement theory. Well, there have been studies. There have been articles. It's not hard to see, if we open our eyes, that you actually have people that are doing everything they can to get more viewers, to make more money, to get more people listening to their podcasts, to get more followers online by pushing white grievance against brown and black people, turning whites against blacks, whites against Hispanics, whites against Muslims, whites against Jews. And what is the consequence? You and I were in Charleston in 2015. Where you had black parishioners gunned down by a white shooter. We saw what happened in Pittsburgh, where Jewish members of a synagogue gunned down in 2018 and 2019. Hispanic Americans gunned down at a Walmart by another person who went there because of the Great Replacement Theory. Now again in 2022, let's just start with a simple question. Have you heard, Reverend Al, has any Republican called you? Has any member of the media called you from these right-wing outlets and saying, we want you to know we do not support the Great Replacement Theory. We think it is racist. Have you heard that from any Republican leaders?
I've not heard from any Republican leaders, not one, any in the media. And I know some of the right-wing media people. They get on Fox and blast me, but they have Tucker Carlson went to Africa with me once. I mean, these people can reach out if they want to reach out, but they are trying to make high ratings, make money. But it's costing lives, and it's not just lives in my community. And certainly, I'm all over this. I've talked to many of the victims in Buffalo. I'm dealing with George Floyd's family, that in a few days is the second anniversary of their killing. But you can't just fight for your tribe. You've got to say this goes across Jews, Latinos, LGBTQ. None of them are reaching out because this whole replacement theory is something that is making money for them, making ratings for them, but it is hustling their own people at the cost of what is going on in this country. The replacement theory must be displaced by real Americans that want to live in a country that you're not targeted because you're not like somebody that thinks they're superior.
Jonathan, you've written an entire book about the dangers of this kind of rhetoric that was just out recently and that it applies here, I think. I think for some people who weren't familiar with the Great Replacement Theory, it's important to point out that while it signals out black and brown people, it blames it on the Jewish people, said this is a great conspiracy orchestrated by the Jews of America, like so many conspiracy theories that we see out there. So when you hear this theory, not just in the fringes of the internet, not in the dark corners of the web, but from the mouths of prominent politicians and media figures, what alarm bells go off for you?
Well, look, I think it's fairly stunning, Willie. I mean, there is a direct line from Charlottesville, Virginia to Buffalo, New York, from tiki torch-bearing neo-Nazis protesting Confederate statues coming down and chanting, "Jews will not replace us," to the racist terrorists who murdered 10 innocent people at that top supermarket this past weekend. Why? Because they all believed in this Great Replacement Theory, as you said, this idea that there's a Jewish cabal using black people and brown people and immigrants and Muslims to try to commit some kind of white genocide. It's a fiction, it's a lie, but this individual, he murdered 10 innocent people out of an effort to try to ignite a, quote, holy war, as he wrote, between Jews and Gentiles. I mean, we need to call this what it is. Domestic terrorism. The Buffalo shooter was no less a terrorist than the shoe bomber or the underwear bomber or the hostage taker in Colleyville, Texas. The groups that promote these ideas, right? These hateful ideas that radicalize individuals, that spread their poison online. They are as dangerous as groups like ISIS or Hezbollah or Hamas, and it reminds us that white supremacy is a global terror threat, and it needs to be treated as such. I mean, Reverend Al and I, we've had our differences. We don't agree on every issue. The Jewish community and the black community don't, but we see that Buffalo made something abundantly clear, Willie, as you just heard the Rev say. We are in the same boat. We have common enemies, and we've got to stand together to fight the ideology of intolerance that threatens Jews and blacks and Latinos and the LGBTQ. Now more than ever, as the Rev said, we need a strategy from this administration to fight hate once and for all.